hawthorn trees, the thorns, the berries, those are fairy trees or fey trees. You're only allowed to, bring that in the home on Beltane to decorate it. If you try to bring it in the home any other time, they say the fae is going to get pissed and they're going to give you a hard time about it. Same thing with hawthorn thorns. You can pick them up off the ground and use them, but you cannot break them off the tree. Again, you're going to piss off the fae. Um, Grapevines are bad for the fae, right? So, it's important that if you do have hawthorn trees that you make sure there's no grapevines anywhere near that or that they're managed or maintained well. The fae also hate iron or steel, so making sure there's no iron or steel near the hawthorn tree is very important. Fairy trees, hawthorn trees are very abundant all over the British Isles, and they are respected nationally. I mean, they've actually rerouted highways around these trees. That's how much, these people, even people in power, I'm so sorry, my phone's going crazy, um, believe in the Fae and they don't want to piss the Fae off. So, other common things from British practices, folk magic practices. A lot of times, especially in these renovations, and I think I have a photo of a newspaper article here at the end. Old clothes were stuffed in walls as a form of protection and warding. Witches' bottles, were buried in the yard or in the walls of these homes. And so these homes that are being renovated, people are finding all this weird shit, old clothes, old witches' bottles. And that's a practice stemming back from the 1300s. And a lot of these old witches' bottles, they weren't pleasant. They were filled with urine, blood, hair, nails, like all these personal effects. So imagine finding, a 400-year-old bottle of urine, interesting, I guess, crazy, but tools. So tools used in British magical folk magic practices. Woodpecker duster wood, very common. Real wool, manipulating energy when you're casting spells, even when you're divinating, you have to have that vibration as high as you can get it. And boy, do these people know how to get that vibration just, spanking. Like they are like all about getting that vibration. I mean, it's really amazing. You can feel it through the pictures. So again, another one of the reasons why I love British folk magic. All right. Let me move me out of the way. So one of the terms you'll hear with British practices, folk practices, is avataring. Most people are familiar with that movie, Avatar. So avataring in magic is where you're kind of taking on the aspect of like God, quote unquote. I don't know what other word to use, but it's very common in other practices as well. In Hinduism, law, Afro-Caribbean magic, this avataring is very common and it's very present in British folk practices. It is how to be ridden by a deity, right? When we are ridden by a deity, it is attached to us. It's kind of like you've probably seen, well, maybe not, in Africa once a year in Tobago, they have the Voodoo Fest, right? And they have these huge ceremonies where the participants are ridden by deities. Same concept. Again, British folk practices are very heavy in ritual theater and drama. They have all these different adaptations of different types of plays, and these folk plays are how they invoke deity, right? That's how they avatar or how they go through the avataring process. Quite often, horse skulls or mare's heads. Those are used to drive away death in the winter. Usually, the leader will have a white cloak on. There is the Amari Floyd processional, which is basically like a parade that is a ritual. This has been going on in the British Isles for, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years. They oftentimes have these pun battles, right? And it's done while they're drinking. So it's like they're trying to outdrink each other and, kind of out pun each other. And again, it's part of a death and rebirth, ritual, honoring that process, asking for abundance and protection during that process. Then, of course, there's the Abbott's Bromley Corn Dance. Let me move myself here. This is a picture, actually, I found an older one of what that kind of looks like. So this is over 900 years old. Some of the antlers used till this day, still to this day, have been tested and are actually over 1,000 years old. So I'm pretty sure this is much older than what we realize. But This is held the corn dance the second Monday in September. Um, but it's a huge deal. I mean, it's a huge part of British Isles magical systems and practices that are incorporated each year.